into the formation of it, and what we are doing and what we did. The major production was a book, and I'll go into that quite in depth. I'm also going to touch on the Gulfstream Hotel. It's been vacant for 14 years and is an eyesore on the main street of the city of Lake Worth Beach. It's right on our waterfront. It's a wasted historic asset. And then I'm going to talk about my time at Mar-a-Lago and dealing with our current president as my boss. And the theme here, the common theme, is using underutilized or under-recognized historic properties and making them economic development assets. So right now you see on the screen, this is my business, and that's my contact information. My email, if you're interested in the Cottages of Lake Worth book, the best way would be to email me and I can get you set up with that. It's $32.95 for a hardcover book. And you'll see portions of the book during my presentation here. And we'll get this to work here. Okay. I wrote chapter 2, but the main author was Dean Sherwin. Janice Sneer was kind of the den mother. She lived in a cottage, and that's where we put the book together and met at her house around a kitchen table. None of us had put together a publication before, but it was, we felt when we formed the Cottages of Lake Worth that beyond some other activities, that our major goal was going to be the production and publication of a quality coffee table book that would have Lake Worth Beach on the same shelf as Key West, Carmel by the Sea, Charleston, South Carolina. We wanted to be at that level because we felt that it was an asset that was just being overlooked and underutilized. Taylor Jones, we were lucky to get Taylor. She was our photographer. The book itself is 240 pages. Most of it is pictures. It's not meant to be read cover to cover, but it features 60 different Lake Worth Beach cottages, most of which are in our historic districts, not exclusively, but most are. And we did all kinds of different, my chapter is on the historic context, but we did chapters on before and after, we did gardens, we did a whole bunch of different ways to look and slice and dice the cottages that are in Lake Worth. It's been very successful. We've had 2 printings, and we were surprised in 2019, in the before times when you could travel and do things. We were one of the finalists for the Indie Book Awards in the coffee table book category for photography. And that meant we went up to Washington, D.C. and were feted and part of a whole book fair. And we got on the list of a lot of booksellers and got some great exposure that way. So that helped achieve part of our goal. We also got recognition from local press, the Palm Beach Daily News. Carlton Varney, he works for the Dorothy Draper Design House, Interior Design House. And he has consulted with first ladies. I'm not sure of the current one, but in the past, he has, particularly with Jackie Kennedy and others. And he discovered our book in a store in downtown Lake Worth. And in March of 2017, the book came out in November of 2016. So in March of 2017, he wrote gushingly during the season in Palm Beach about how much he liked our book. And you couldn't have bought better press. And he has become a big fan. We were also voted best local photo book from Florida Weekly. And Carlton Varney has been a champion. This is last November. He spoke at the Bookseller, which unfortunately is closed. It was a beautiful bookstore in downtown Lake Worth at the corner of J Street and Lake Avenue. But he continues to be an ally. We are a presence on Facebook, by the way. You can look for Cottages of Lake Worth book, and you can access the book in that way. Let me tell you a little bit about what a Lake Worth cottage is. Lake Worth was platted in 1912 originally, and I'll show you the area of the original plat. But all the lots were 25 to 50 foot wide lot and about 135 feet deep. And they all backed up into a public alley. And many times the garage would access from the alley. So you had the front yard, a front porch, and then you had about 1,000 square feet of living space in cottages of various designs. And most of the development in Lake Worth that we're going to talk about today happened from the city's founding, which is 1913, which coincidentally was when the city of Lake Worth, then, we've had a name change, which is also a part of our branding initiative. Now we're Lake Worth Beach. That is when we got a stop on the FEC Railroad, which is Flagler's Railroad, which came to West Palm in 1894. So the train was going by Lake Worth without a stop until 1913, and suddenly that's when we became a city. The properties often contain garages and apartment sheds, gardens, and pools, and they're constructed in a variety of materials and styles. This is a map of the city, and we are in coastal central Palm Beach County, east of I-95. We're a smaller city of almost 7 square miles. That blue outline around the edge of the map there shows the boundaries of the city, and the shaded portions show the historic districts within the city. We have 6 historic districts, 3 of which are on the National Register of Historic Places. You can see them with the stars. College Park, that's where I live, up in the north end of the city. Old Lucerne, which is right by our municipal golf course, which was an improvement done in the 1920s and significant fill to fill in Lake Worth. And that was a major community development project the city undertook during the 1920s, during the boom period. And then our downtown area is also a National Register district, but we have the South Palm Park, Northeast Lucerne, and Southeast Lucerne. And that aqua oval there is essentially the area where you find these concentration of cottages for which the book is focused on. And just to give you a sense, I think it's important to understand that Lake Worth Beach is unique because we have such a concentration of historic properties in such a small area. Within our 6 historic districts, we have 2,653 structures, and all have either 2 designations. They're contributing or non-contributing. And of those, 1,600, a little over 1,600 are considered contributing. So that's a very high percentage. And that was based on a survey done at the turn of the century, the year 2000. So that number would be significantly higher now because now we're able to capture some mid-century modern homes. So the quality and concentration is really what makes Lake Worth unique in terms of historic preservation. These are some pictures from the book just to give you the idea of the photography, and Taylor Jones did a great job in timing. The logistics behind the book were just incredible. Imagine featuring 60 different properties, getting the permission of all the property owners, timing the visits to the property with Janice Sneer and Taylor Jones going out, Taylor Jones with her camera. They had to time it so that they took the pictures for the houses on the east side of the street during the afternoon so that they would get the sun on the front of the house, and vice versa for the west side properties. They had the time for the morning to get the sun on the front of the house. This is a Mission Revival. This is at the southeast corner of North 7th Avenue and North Ocean Breeze. This is a frame vernacular structure. This is the most common, and usually was built by just a family that had some carpentry skills, and they did it themselves. And the plans were available in the Lake Worth Herald, and they just built it from local materials. But this is the most predominant type of Lake Worth cottage that we have. These are all pictures from the book, by the way, and in fact, if you look closely, you can see the seam line in the center, and that's from the book proof. This is a transitional deco style. You see some Mediterranean revival elements, but you're also starting to see some Art Deco and Art Moderne elements. And this is a typical Craftsman bungalow that graces the cover of the book. And this is on North Palm Way. I think it sold recently for around $450,000. It has a guest house in the back. Now, we also have a Sears Roebuck home in Lake Worth. We have a couple, and we do feature one in the book. This was a mail order bungalow that you could go to the Sears catalog, and this particular model was the Walton, and it is a bungalow style, 6 rooms with a bath and a porch, and you could get a mirror image too. And so for $2,472, you could buy your plans and your materials, and they would be drop shipped to your property, and then it would just be a matter of putting the pieces together. And I did the math, and $2,472 in 2020 dollars is $36,500. So I think that's a real good deal. We have a picture of one. This is on North M, 918 North M. So if you're ever in Lake Worth Beach, you can check out the Sears Roebuck house that we have. And you notice that this is the mirror image too of the one that was shown in the plan. And this has been on, we've had 3 tours during the time that the Cottages of Lake Worth has been around, and it's been on our tour. This was the first newspaper published by the Lake Worth Herald, which was the Lucerne Herald. We had a name change from Lucerne to Lake Worth because there was already Lucerne, Florida, and we didn't find out about that when the town was platted. And we were the Wonder City. We had our own electric utility, and we still do, which is, to some people, the bane of our existence, and other people, it's a sign of pride, and it really has improved in its reliability, but the rates are high for commercial clients. But the residential is on par with FPL. But this is announcing the initiation of the city. This is right after we had a stop on the FEC, the railroad. And they had on the right side of the screen there is the Bryant and Greenwood Real Estate Company, which was the company that subdivided the acreage that became Lake Worth into these 50-foot wide and 20-foot wide lots. The idea was that they were going to focus on land that was west in green acres as agricultural lots and sell those for $150 and give away the lots as just a sweetener to the deal in the area that became Lake Worth. That turned out not to do too well because in 1912, the day that they had the auction for the land out west, there was a big rainstorm and all the land was flooded. So people ended up buying the town lots, and that's where the cottages grew. So that was the town's beginning. A lot of people compare Lake Worth Beach with Delray Beach, and I think this is instructive to look at our relative growth. We really were kind of neck and neck during the first half of the 20th century. But you notice that the blue line, Delray, surpassed us in about 1970. And coincidentally, that's when I-95 went through and connected Palm Beach County with the rest of the interstate system. So what Delray Beach was able to do is they annexed all the way out to Military Trail. And if you look at the next slide here, to the right, that's a USGS map from the late 1950s. And the golden areas to the north there, you can see Lake Worth. That's essentially our boundaries still today. But if you look at the south, where Delray is, it's a much smaller footprint than there is today. And if you look at the bar graph, you can see that's the difference in size today versus Lake Worth. So we get really irritated, us Lake Worth Beach people, when people compare us to Delray Beach and say that we're going to be the next Delray Beach. No, we're going to be the next better Lake Worth Beach. And they're really kind of apples and oranges when you get down to it. Plus, Delray only has 500 structures within their historic districts, and we have 2,600. So thank you very much. We win. All right. This is the original plat of the city of Lake Worth Beach area. The northern part goes up to 13th Avenue North. The southern part of this map goes about to 6th Avenue South. And the dashed lines are the near-in historic districts to the downtown area. We have the signature Lake and Lucerne Avenues. They're one-way pairs. Lake Worth is one-way, Lake Avenue is one-way east, and Lucerne is one-way west. And there's a traffic circle at the western terminus. And then all that leads to the bridge going over the Intracoastal that leads to the Lake Worth Beach. Now, this is the time before I-95. So this is the early part of the 20th century. And you can really frame and point the finger for the cause of development in Florida due to the transportation improvements that happened during the 20th century, and the technology and the technological innovation that happened. So first we have the train. That's the gray line that appears on the map. And that brought people down, and that helped establish the city. Then in the teens and the 20s, you had an effort to, the car industry was getting off the ground. You had an increasing middle class. You had a focus on the infrastructure in terms of roads and how those cars were going to travel. So by the 1920s, during the boom period of South Florida economy during the early 20th century, people started arriving by car. And they had their own Model Ts, and it would be an adventure to come from Michigan or New York or wherever and take advantage of our warm climate during the winter months and escape from the 3 foot of snow in Buffalo. So in order to take advantage of that, our early city fathers and mothers wanted to create a destination that led people from the train and from US 1 through our downtown area, and they created an attraction on the beach, which was the casino building, and that was in 1922. And to take advantage of that, as we'll see later on in my presentation, they also built the Gulfstream Hotel in 1925. And all of this was really, talk about a planned community. They did the golf course on the Intracoastal. They had a hotel in 1925. They created the destination for the beach, and they were hooked into the transportation system at the time. And it was a model that worked very well for them. And this is a picture from the mid-30s of Lake Avenue. It was 2 ways at this time, but you could be at Lake Avenue and look to the east, and it wouldn't look that much different than it does today. And there's a sincerity and kind of a Mayberry-esque quality to Lake Worth Beach that we have held on to and is really part of our signature. Now, this I like to show for a lot of different reasons. This is say you're sitting on the City Hall or standing on the City Hall property and you're looking southeast. This is the corner of Lake Avenue and Dixie Highway or US 1. And the city was doing all it could, as I said, to direct people to the beach. And they had a neon sign when you could do it. Can you imagine FDOT allowing this today? A neon sign with, and it just wouldn't happen. But they did in the day, and I think it would be so cool to see that neon sign back and arrows pointing to the ocean beach and the fishing pier. And we wanted people to come through our downtown, spend money, and see what was at the beach. That was what we had going on. But the funny part, 2 things I want to point out. Number one, we lost this historic Rollerston building, which was at the southeast corner of Lake and US 1 when the US 1 was expanded during the 60s. So I think this is right before that. But the contradiction I'd like to point out here, if you look on the right side of this picture, here we have this sign pointing to the beach and everything, and then it says no left turn. So I think things were about to change at that point. And right across the street, that was the Chamber of Commerce, which is the current City Hall. And our big calling card was you could turn left and go to saltwater, and you could turn right and go to freshwater. And fishing was a very big tourist item in the early part of the Lake Worth Beach history. This is that casino building that I'm sure many of you have been to. It was reconstructed in this style in 2012. It has weathered the COVID crisis. We now have Via La Playa, which is owned by the same person who runs Benny's on the Beach. And that is operating where Mulligan's used to be in the northeast corner of the casino building. What's interesting to point out here is that it's called a casino. There are still people there when I'm up there that says, where are the slot machines? I suppose this is supposed to be a casino. No, that was the destination. It was a recreation area and it was a park. And that's why they named it a casino building. But if you look closely there, you can see on the first floor that they actually had roller skating at one time in the early 1920s or the mid 1920s. This would have been like the peak of the boom during the 20s. This is the 30s. The interesting thing to point out here is this is a barrier island. This is Lake Worth Beach looking north, and there aren't any condos. This was the edge of civilization at the time. And you were on a barrier island, and it really wasn't that attractive to have oceanfront property, and that only became popular during the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. This, if you go back to the, I won't, but the casino building originally had a tower. Of course, we had the 1928 hurricane that took care of the tower, and if you look at this linen postcard picture from the 1930s, the building does not have a tower, so that was removed during the storm. And then there was a big one that came in 1947 that took off the second floor, and we had the mid-century version of the international style that was there before the 2012 remake. But you can see this nice idyllic scene here. And what's interesting is there's a full moon, and if you know anything about astronomy, if that's a full moon, that's about 4 o'clock in the morning, so you wouldn't have that many people on the beach. But it was a romantic notion, and it was a way to popularize and romanticize travel and tourism forward. And this is how people got there during the war, is right down US 1 from New York, and that was our lifeblood. Which sprung highway architecture, and this is Christine's, which was Blue Front Barbecue for a while. It is available if you want to buy it. It's on the market. I can set you up with the realtor that has the property, but it's pretty much intact and historically intact. This one, unfortunately, the patio is in my neck of the woods. It's about 2 blocks away, the property that it sat on. But you can see the highway architecture being attractive, and I just wish something like that was there again, but we lost that. We also have hotels and motels. We're about to get to the Gulfstream Hotel. This is the epic PowerPoint that you've been waiting for, never before seen by anyone. That's our 7-story hotel that was built in 1925, and I'll get into the history of that. But they had Burma Shave-like signs going up and down US 1 saying, oh, you're only 60 miles from the Gulfstream Hotel in Lake Worth. Oh, you're 55 miles from Gulfstream Hotel. Look for the tower. Look for the neon sign on the top of the roof. And, so it was all hype. And then you also had the mom and pop tourist type hotels that lined Dixie Highway. And these are cute little tourist cabins that were up here. If you know anything about the north part of Lake Worth, this is just south of where the current McDonald's is now and where World Thrift is. Okay, so now we're post-war, and we have Florida's Turnpike that came down in 1957, and that was farther west, so that really didn't impact us too much. But they started planning for I-95, and the obstacles in the way in terms of our Main Street were the location of the Lake Worth High School and the city's electric and water utilities. I talked about the city's electric utility. Those were immovable objects. So they had to find exits for Lake Worth that were not on the main street. So they chose 10th Avenue North and 6th Avenue South, and those are our exits today. And I maintain that Lake Worth has retained its uniqueness and its historic character because it really has been cut off from the flow of transportation in South Florida. You look up and down South Florida, and all the other municipalities have exits on their main highways, and they could not survive the development pressure. And we've been able to, because this filtered the traffic. You definitely knew you had to get off and go into Lake Worth. So I think that's why we have these historic structures the way we do. Now, more to the theme of why I'm here today. We had our centennial in 2013, and this is a gentleman who's painting a sign celebrating that fact in 2013. And it was really a soul-searching period. And a group of us got together, and we were experiencing Lake Worth, of the 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County, during the Great Recession, lost more taxable property value than any other city in Palm Beach County. And here we were, a coastal community. And we said, how are we going to brand ourselves? How are we going to identify ourselves and make ourselves unique in relation to other communities? Well, we found the Cottages of Lake Worth. This is our mission statement. And we put together flyers and had walking tours. And we still do that today. There's an information center in the City Hall Annex building right downtown, and we give those out. We also have a sign program where people can, by identifying signage and a little more description about their cottage as it appears on the map. And we've had 3 different home tours in 2016, 2017, and 2018, and they've all sold out prior to, way prior to the deadline. And we've had 500 people on those tours. And I think that will probably go by the wayside this year, but unfortunately. Anyway, this is what the book looks like. The Cottages of Lake Worth, living large in small spaces. And these are some of the people. This is the dining room table that we created the book on. That's Janice Sneer and Dean Sherwin across the way. He was the author of much of the text of the book. And this is Taylor Jones. She's holding up a finished copy of the book. She was our photographer. And I must say that it's unfortunate. Dean Sherwin was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer during the creation of the book, and he was not able to see the publication of it. So I always like to mention that fact. But we never did a book before. We didn't know what we were doing. So we got some underwriters. They helped fill the bill to pay for the photographer. We worked with a consultant out of Washington who was recommended to us. Just things came together. We started a GoFundMe account. And then we did discounted pre-sales. And when you do that, if you ever do a book and self-publish, one thing Dean did do is he got all the ISBN numbers, and that's a whole process you have to go through before you start self-publishing. But when you do sell the book in advance, people want to know when it's coming out. And this was the biggest question we were getting in 2016. When is the book coming out? So on social media, we had a tracking map of the ship that was actually coming from Asia with the books, and we were keeping people informed real time when the books were coming in. And this is it going through the Panama Canal, and then it's going into the Miami Harbor, and people were really chomping at the bit. So we had fun with that. But November 3rd, 2016 is when the books came in, and here we are unloading the books. And so this is what we've done so far. We had a first printing November 2016. We ordered 2,000 books, 500 of which were softback. The total, we had a second printing in January of 2018 of 2,000. We've printed a total of 4,000, and the total number of books sold is 2,744. And 250 were purchased by the city of Lake Worth Beach, the softback, and they use those for promotional purposes. So now on to the Gulfstream Hotel. I'm trying to race through here and not go over my time limit. So, and there's a lot to get to. But this is the Gulfstream Hotel. It's been in fallow for the past 14 years. I remember eating there in the early 2000s. It had a fantastic restaurant on the first floor. My parents stayed here. It's been a political football, and height is a big issue in Lake Worth. And we had a ballot issue in March that I was a big proponent behind and really the force behind. But it would allow the construction of a building on the western half of the block that the Gulfstream exists. And you can see that highlighted in purple there. The historic hotel is on the larger lot on the east side. East of Gulfview Road there is Bryant Park, and then you have the bridge going over the Intercoastal, and this is right at our main street in the downtown, just south of Lake Avenue. So you have the historic hotel on the northeast corner, and then the entire western half of the block is vacant. So the charter amendment would allow a building the height of the historic hotel, which is 87 feet on this block only. And the proposition passed by 63%. So, and here's our casino building the way it was, but it all worked as a system. The Gulfstream Hotel history is a tragic one. It began as the El Nuevo Hotel, and it was developed by G. Lord Pritchard out of Atlanta. Nothing too tragic about that. They were the same people that built the Hotel George Washington, which became the Helen Wilkes Hotel, which is now demolished, and that was in West Palm Beach. And 20s era hotels are endangered species, and this is one that hit the dust in 1995 in downtown West Palm Beach that I tried to save behind the scenes in the early 90s when I was working for the city of West Palm Beach. That didn't come about. So that's sad to see, but that's what happens. I mean, these are precious things. This is a postcard from the mid-1920s of the Gulfstream Hotel when it first opened. And unfortunately, in 1928, we had the hurricane. It damaged the 6th and 7th floors, the top floors of the hotel, and there was 8 feet of sand in the lobby. They did try and open for the 1928 season, but were unable to. And you can read this. This is in the National Register Designation Report in 1992, talking about the hotel's significance. But they were in bankruptcy until 1936. So nothing was happening at the hotel all during most of its early life. And it wasn't until 1936 that it came to life. This is the floor plan of the hotel, the way it exists now, and look how small the rooms are. The people who are about to redevelop it, who I'm going to introduce you to with Restoration St. Louis, they're going under the Marriott flag portfolio tribute hotel flag. And their minimum room size is 450 feet for the spec for the flag. These are barely 150 feet in the existing hotel. So they're going to make fewer rooms and larger rooms in the process. But for the 1920s, this was state of the art because it had a bathroom and you didn't have to walk down the hall for your facilities. This picture was taken when it was in bankruptcy, so during the early 1930s, and the hotel was dark. And this is probably from the mid-1930s, and I think it's based, this is a postcard, and it was based on the picture that I just showed you. Again, people were arriving by train, some by plane. These are some artifacts. This is New Year's Eve 1941 going into 1942, and you can see what they were having for their New Year's Eve dinner at the Gulfstream Hotel. And their slogan was, "Everything Florida has, we have." And they did a lot in the way of promotion. On the left side is a script that was read on the radio station WWPG advertising the event. And this is the Gulfstream Hotel in its heyday. Saw that picture. They did a lot in the way of promotion. You can see how they capitalized on the entire block. And this is how it looked probably in the mid-1950s. What I'd like to point out here is the lack of high-rises everywhere else. And look at the Barrier Island. There is nothing there. So this is like the first half of the 1950s. You would look at the same view today and all you would see are 7-story condominiums. So again, they had all kinds of, and it sits today vacant for 14 years. And these are the new developers. You can search for them on the internet, Restoration St. Louis, and Amy Gill and Elmer Gill. They are the most wonderful salt of the earth people. They have quite a portfolio around the Midwest. They're based in St. Louis, but they have a lot of properties in Iowa. They are entirely hospitality related. They have done over 400 historic properties. And I couldn't be happier that they have found Lake Worth and they've found the Gulfstream Hotel. And this is from the CRA meeting just in August. I'm not going to read a PowerPoint to you here, but they're talking about a total of 170 rooms in all the property, which you'll see in a moment, and a 42-unit condominium, which will be the north side, the south side of that western half of the block. Now, the CRA is coming in big with 4.5 million in rebates in property taxes of city and county taxes are going to be rebated to the project over a 10-year period. The CRA is going to be sunsetted in 2031. And they are also, the CRA is footing 1.8 million in pre-development costs. So that's quite a package that has been put together by the CRA, the Lake Worth Beach CRA. And this was just passed at the August 11th, 2020 meeting. So this is good news. Now, more good news. These are renderings of how the new Gulfstream will look. This is looking southwest, and you see the historic hotel there. And this is looking at South Lakeside Drive, looking southeast. They are going through the National Park Service and doing a federal income tax credit on the historic hotel. And based on the criteria for the National Preservation Tax Credit, one of the rules is that anything new near a historic structure like this really has to be distinct in style. So there is some debate about, oh, should it be more like the Gulfstream Hotel or should it be a departure? They're definitely going the departure modern architecture route. And here's an isometric view from above, a bird's eye view. There'll be a pool and a restaurant on the roof and a bar. And there'll also be a restaurant in the historic hotel in the location where the historic hotel was. And that new development will take up the entire western part of the block. Also look at the amount of green that is on the building. They're very much into sustainability and they're going to incorporate green features as much as possible in the development. This is the eastern facade of the building on the western lot, the center of which will be a 3-story parking garage, and they'll actually have bonus parking, which they will give back in terms of either public parking or dedicated parking for the condos around the building. And they're doing an alley, and this is an expansion of the kitchen area onto the existing hotel that doesn't exist now. And this is an aerial view of the Gulfstream Hotel. So I am racing through this as much as I can, but we've come to the cherry on top of the sundae. And Sandy, cue the music, please.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
You get the point. This was 10 years of my life. And you can imagine spending 10 years in association with Donald Trump and he's only a phone call away. And you're face to face with him every weekend. And he's on a one-week rotation visiting your construction sites. So I want to thank Ame for inviting me to do this because it really motivated me to get organized, because now I realize I'm part of presidential history and I have tons of stuff related to Mar-a-Lago that I have accumulated over time. And these were all the shiny sheets and Palm Beach posts from my 10 years that I had kept in a suitcase for the Smithsonian. I don't know. And here's a banker's box that I didn't even get into yet. But I am pleased to report that that was September 5th. By today, this is how those newspapers looked. And they're all sorted by year and month and date. And I flagged all the ones that are important. So you know, I made progress, and I just want to thank you all for motivating me to do that. So anyway, you don't know about Mar-a-Lago and have been living under a rock. It was established by Marjorie Merriweather Post when she was married to E.F. Hutton. She had 4 husbands throughout her life. There are similarities between Mrs. Post and Mr. Trump, and I've always said that it takes a certain personality to wear Mar-a-Lago. There are things that are definitely divergent, but this is a house for a larger-than-life personality. And Mrs. Post was that in her time, and she was a woman ahead of her time. And Mr. Trump is who he is, and we know about his story. So, and they've really been the only 2 associated with the property other than the federal government. We'll get to that in a minute, but it was, it took 4 years to build. She scouted out the property, 18 acres, ocean to lake. It was the most extravagant. She meant it to be the most extravagant house in Palm Beach. And she was competing with the Stotesburys, with Horace Dodge's widow, who had Playa Riente. There were large estates that dotted Palm Beach, but the unique thing now about Mar-a-Lago is it's the last remaining large estate that is intact, that has its acreage. All the rest have been either demolished or subdivided. And this is an early picture right after construction. Now, we jump to 1970, and I picked this picture out because this is Marjorie Merriweather Post in the sunset of her years. She died in 1973, and she's walking with Liz Carpenter. It was identified. This is from the Florida Archives. And both of them are gowned and jeweled. This was an art fair at Mar-a-Lago in 1970. And I found out a little bit about Liz Carpenter. She was a writer, a feminist, reporter, media advisor, speechwriter, political humorist, and public relations expert. And she was born in Salito in southern Bell County, Texas. And in 1936, her 24-room residence there was declared a state historic monument. So I thought it was interesting to have these 2 women together here. But this is Mrs. Post in all her finery, enjoying Mar-a-Lago. And this is the dining room in Mar-a-Lago. It's in black and white. It's patterned after a room in the Chigi Palace, which was rumored to be Mussolini's office, which will, any connection to the current owner will just kind of, you know, jump over that. This is the living room where the 1,000-wing ceiling is, and that's all gold leaf. I have books that are in color that were publications put out by the club, but this is how the estate looked when Mrs. Post owned it. These are what were amounted to the cabanas at the beach for the pool area. And in 1972 also, this turns out to be an important picture. The gentleman on the left is Rogers Clark Ballard Morton, Rogers C.B. Morton. And he was the U.S. Secretary of Interior and Secretary of Commerce under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. And he would play a role because eventually the Secretary of Interior and the National Park Service would take over Mar-a-Lago from Mrs. Post and operate it during the 1970s. And the person next to him is Claude Kirk, who was the 36th governor of the state of Florida and the first Republican governor since Reconstruction. And this picture is a group of Florida Republicans enjoying the Mar-a-Lago living room. So it's, I just thought it was a coincidence that we have a whole bunch of Republicans in the living room at Mar-a-Lago. So a little bit of a timeline. Established as a National Historic Site by order of the Secretary of Interior, who you just met. And in 1972, turned over to the National Park Service for the administration. 1973, this is how Mar-a-Lago looked. Back up here. This is how Mar-a-Lago looked when Marjorie Merriweather Post died. So this is how it was left. He left it to the federal government. It was run by the National Park Service. She left $1 million endowment because of the inflation in the 1970s. It couldn't keep up with the expenses. This is a record of when President Nixon visited the property, which is interesting because it's a year, within a year of her death. He was joined by Bibi Rebozo. But what's interesting is the date, July 7th, 1974. Nixon resigned August 8th, 1974. So this was only a month before his resignation that he visited Mar-a-Lago. And it was the only time ever before Mr. Trump owns the property and is president that Palm Beach has allowed a helicopter to land in the town. So in 1980, it returned to the Post Foundation. In 1983, the town approved a 9-lot subdivision for a contract purchaser. And in 1985, Donald Trump purchased it for $8 million. And he tried to subdivide it with 1 lot less than what had been previously approved, but the town was stonewalling him and wouldn't let him, so he sued the town. And because of the lawsuit, he proposed a private club as a quid pro quo to say, okay, you won't let me subdivide it, I'm going to have a private club there. So this was the hearing in May 13th, 1993. I had a connection with the realtor who knew the attorney that was working with Donald Trump. I met with the attorney before the meeting. My expertise was traffic. I thought it was important to keep Mar-a-Lago as a private entity and not subdivided. I was all for the club concept. So I came in, and this is that hearing. It was wall-to-wall people. This is the town council. And look who's there in the background. That's me sitting, sitting there with all my hair, 1931 self. And so that was in May. The town finally approved it on a 3-2 vote. And then I got a call in September saying, why don't you come on and help us put it together? So I thought I'd be working for someone who worked for someone else who reported Donald Trump. Well, no, I worked for Donald Trump. He was my main report. So, there was a lawsuit about the fact that there were guest suites at the club, and there was a political cartoon that said, there goes another one of those Mar-a-Lago suite transients. Boy, they sure are ruining the neighborhood. I mean, it was just kind of ridiculous. And traffic being the big deal, now that he's president, all the traffic is shut down around the state. So it just, craziness. Anyway, we had tons of coverage. This is kind of, it's too late to go into now, but these are all the to-do list items that I was brought in to do. And we did them in about 1.5 years. And the spot ended up being in this area. We installed a complete fire sprinkler system. We had 5 clay tennis courts. This is getting towards the opening here. This was such a hot potato politically. This was one of our yes votes on the town council. And we were about ready to open it as a club, and all these ads are like justifying her connection to Donald Trump and how she really didn't have one. They were accusing her of paying her way to his wedding, and that Mar-a-Lago was a good thing. And I mean, we were up against a hurricane wind politically all the time. And this is Donald signing the final papers. The first paragraph says cryptically that he looked very presidential in doing so. This is back in 1995. And then I don't want to give anyone a heart attack here, but I thought this headline was interesting. Trump hosts Mar-a-Lago victory celebration. That was when we became a club. And that's yours truly, second to the right, standing with Mr. Trump. And this is after the signing of the papers. And that's the party. Then we had the This is what we started out with for the spa, and we did all kinds of changes here. It's one of the more picturesque part of the property. We always had requests going before the town. They always wrote funny headlines to try and make us look crazy. Tennis waving monkeys at Lago, and Donald was always brash and too much glitter and too much light. These are some progress drawings. We have 5 championship clay tennis courts that I supervised in the tennis pavilion. We also had a tent where we had special events before we had a ballroom, and that was my responsibility. The tent couldn't be a permanent structure. It had to, the wooden platform had to be removed each year. They went to the extent where we had custom trailers made for the AC units because they couldn't be on slabs, because then it would be a permanent thing. So they all had to be on wheels. And that's where we held special events. Celine Dion performed there the week after she won the Grammy for Titanic, the Heart Will Go On song. This is the beach before we did the cabanas. And there's yours truly featured in the Jewel of Palm Beach, which was the club publication. This is back in 1999. This is me doing my thing before the town council, the master plan, which led to the ballroom and the cabanas at the beach. This is the plan for the cabanas at the beach, which was done by Rick Gonzalez. And this is the grand opening. I thought this was funny. It says ceremonial ribbon cutting and eye-opener cocktails. I wish I would have had a few during the ceremony. It was interesting. So this is 2003. I was there from 1993 to 2003, and this is a good representation of how I left the property. And that's with the beach cabanas intact, a pool at the beach. You can see where the new ballroom was going to be. These are the awards that we won while I was there. Court of the Year, a Florida Trust for Historic Preservation Award, and the Florida Society of American Institute of Building Design. And this is Mr. Trump receiving that award in 2001, and you can see me behind with even less hair now. And then we did Trump International Golf Course, just because we didn't have anything else to do. So we said, let's develop 240 acres, move biblical amounts of earth, and we created a golf course in the shadow of the jail. And then we did a 60-acre executive course to the northwest of it. And then this is Mar-a-Lago today with the helipad, and that's where Marine One could land if he wanted to do that, but I think he likes the parade. So that's it, folks.
Wes, that was so interesting, and it's really neat to see Lake Worth, because I've been going to Lake Worth. My grandparents moved there in the early 80s, so I've been going to Lake Worth Beach, and so that was really interesting to see. No, we do have a few questions in the chat box, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let's see. We have, are the cottages marked historic? Does Lake Worth have their own historic board? Are they certified local government? Do you have an interlocal agreement with the other cities and towns? And with the 2,400 historic structures, what was the parameters for determining them historic?
Okay. Well, there's a lot there to unpack, but it helps.
That's me, sorry. I'm on the historic board of Martin County.
No, that's okay. I was chair. You asked the right question to the right person, because I was chair of the Historic Preservation Board and the Planning and Zoning Board for Lake Worth Beach for about 10 years. And I was there when the historic districts were formed. What you have to do is you go out and you pay a consultant to do a survey of an area. It could be a platted area, it could be a neighborhood. And we had those done, and that was done in the late 90s, early 2000s for our 6 historic districts. And at that point, the specialist, this historic preservation consultant, goes by and inventories. Every historic property has a master site file, which is filed with the state of Florida, the Division of Historic Resources. and some already have master site file designations. But what they do is they update that and they determine whether it is a contributing property or whether it's non-contributing. And if it's contributing, it's pretty much intact. It represents a style or a time or a theme. There's some significance about the property in that it hasn't been altered. Non-contributing structures are those that have been altered beyond recognition of what they were originally, or they're newer construction that generally is not 50 years or older. So all that is made and determined. Lake Worth has a 7-member historic resource preservation board, and everything gets approved by them that is within a historic district or individually designated. We don't have too many individually designated properties outside a historic district, but all those 2,600 structures, if you're going to do something, you're going through the historic preservation department. We have a very robust staff in the city of Lake Worth Beach in their community sustainability department. And we need to do a better job at promoting the fact that living in a historic district is a good thing and it's not a burden. And realtors have to do a better job educating people about what it means to be in a historic district, because a lot of times people just think that they can change out their windows and go to Home Depot and buy some vinyl windows, and no, they can't do that. So there's a whole educational component to it that you need to have in place. Lake Worth Beach is a certified local government and has been for many years.
Okay.
We're
just not getting ours.
Okay. In order to achieve that, you need certain representation from professions like urban planners and attorneys and real estate people and construction people. And you have to recertify that each year. And that gives you the right to make local decisions.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for answering that. There's just some things Martin County is still going through right now. I've been on the board now for over 9 years and just seeing a lot changed since then. And we're still going through our the local government part of it, but we've got great representation of county staff that's doing that. We're in our last leg of that because we can't even do historic districts in that county until we have that. So we're still ways behind you guys, but it was very interesting to hear all that you've done. I didn't know that much about it, so this was good for me.
Good. Well, I know a great consultant you can call to help.
Okay, I'll email you my contact information.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wes, we have a couple more questions. Ame wants to know who represented Trump at the hearing. Was it Sicklin? Looks like him in the picture.
Yeah, Alan Sicklin was there. He was part of our team. Paul Rampell was the major quarterback, the legal quarterback. His big cause and thing that he championship was the fact that this was going to be a non-discriminatory club, which is really sort of ironic now, given the situation we're in with our current president. That was the reason. One of the major reasons behind establishing Mar-a-Lago was that it was not going to discriminate based on race or particularly religion. And in 1996, I attacked the town's comprehensive plan and their concurrency system because they included land in private clubs that discriminate as meeting their recreation requirement for concurrency. And Donald sued the town for $100 million over that, saying that we were being treated unfairly, and they were included. Their private land that could not be used by people of a certain religion or color were being denied access, so they shouldn't be including that as meeting their public recreation requirements. So I have all that history tucked away too in my report that I did and the newspaper articles.
Great, thanks, Wes. And when is, what's the timeline for the development of the Gulfstream Hotel?
Well, they're very ambitious. They're going to be submitting, they're still waiting for financing. In the days of COVID here, the hospitality industry was hit particularly hard. They have a record with a lot of lenders because they've done 400 projects, and they do have a portfolio. But there's still some things that they're trying to work out and solidify. Their due diligence period extends until December, and their plan is to be underway in March with construction. Their open date is the end of 2022.
Wow, great.
And all that benefit that the CRA gave them is helping them meet the gap in the financing.
That's great. Thanks, Wes.
Mhm.
I have to be honest, I haven't been to the Lake Worth Casino. I can't even tell you when. What is occupying that space now? Is it just restaurants in there?
There are restaurants on the first floor. There's a t-shirt shop. Also, Barry, go visit him and use your credit card there. He'd enjoy that, and tell him Wes sent you. We do have a ballroom on the second floor that the city had quite a great business in weddings. It was one of the premier wedding destinations in South Florida, and they were recognized for that. But since March, they haven't been able to hold weddings. But that will start again. There is a portion on the second floor if you want to start a restaurant. There's a beautiful space, 5,000 square feet, that's being used as staff offices right now with ocean view. That was designed to be a restaurant, and it has a hood and everything ready to go in. Someone thought that it could be Cafe La Rope South, and it just never has come to be, and staff are using that space as office. So there has to be a rework. The pool is defunct right now. It's an open cavity without water in it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the beach property. The city has squirreled away $7 million of county penny sales tax money for that to help redesign that. But it just never seems like we're done with the beach, and we just keep throwing money at it.
Oh, it's a great property for sure. Now, I know that you said something in the beginning that if people were interested in the book, how can we get the book?
I think the best way would be to email me, and I can set you up. It's Wes Blackman, WESBLACKMAN, @gmail.com. And the price is $32.95.
Okay. That is great. Wes, thank you so much again. And we would love to have you back when we could all meet in person, because I think this would just really be something neat to see on a big screen and, interact with the other members. But this has been really great information, and we appreciate you so much taking the time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think the Mar-a-Lago part could take an hour or an hour and a half just in itself. So.
No doubt. No doubt. Thank you, Wes.
All right.
One more announcement I just want to make while I have everybody here. You should have received maybe about an hour ago an email with the 2021 slate for the board. If you would please just take a look at that email, as we need your response to that, and we're excited with our board slate 2021. So just make sure you take a look at that and vote on that, as we'll need that by our next program next month. But I want to thank you all again for attending, and thank you again, Wes and Ame, for getting for Wes to us. And thank you all so much. Stay safe, and we'll see you hopefully at our Thursday happy hour event. Thanks, everyone.